I love Kalista. I think Kalista Alistar or Kalista Thresh are some of the best aggressive bottom lanes in the league at the moment. And I like it because we haven't seen Patrik play it yet. And I've always looked at Patrik as this guy that can excel, but hasn't quite had the opportunity to do it yet. So I'm hoping this game is that chance.
The problem I have with Kalista is she did receive some changes not too long ago. And one of the biggest things that I remember was that her damage to monsters, I believe, got cut in half on the Rend, which means that one of her greatest assets of being able to threaten things like the Baron in the mid game is gone. Because you've got to remember that Kalista is one of those champions that does fall off in the late game. You don't really build crit on her. Her strongest points are during the laning phase and in the mid game. So typically what you do is you build a lead, then you go to Baron at like the 25-minute mark, and then you can rush it down because, well, hey, you're Kalista. But now that that's much weaker, I just feel like her identity as a champion is much less obvious than what it used to be.
I agree with that. She did also, though, get base damage and scaling damage buffs on that 9.1 patch where they reduced the epic monster damage to 50%. So she is just, in terms of skirmishing, in terms of team fighting, she will have more damage earlier on in the game. It's only slight, but maybe that's enough for Origen to get their second win of the LEC. Bans coming out in the second phase, then Morgana Victor taken away by Origen. LeBlanc and a missed ban slash null ban here from SK Gaming. I'll make sure with our producers exactly why that's happened.
So clearly what Origen are doing right now in terms of their draft is they've tried to get themselves a strong bot side of the map. The cannon into the Aatrox is ideally what they're expecting towards the top side, so they have two winning matchups. Ooh. They're also going to run the Kayn into Sejuani, and this was a jungler that we've been seeing a lot over in both the LCK and LPL. I say a lot, has been kind of rising in popularity, has been showing his face a little bit more because against Sejuani, you can't really get punished for your weak early game, which means you can farm, get to that red game state where you are a monster in the mid to late game. You're extremely tanky, you have a huge amount of sustain, you're very disruptive in team fights, and you can be very powerful, but only once you've gotten that evolution.
We're looking to see how quickly that Rust can come out. That was an intended misban from SK. They didn't lock in a ban in time. They will pick the Vladimir, assume that Pirean will be taking that in the mid lane. Of course, could go up to Werlyb in the top. Still a little bit of flexibility there. And now they need to round it out with the support. I like Braum. Braum is a strong pick. Works well. Braum is a good support.
Yeah, very solid, very well-rounded. He doesn't have the best roaming, which is what I think you should try to pair up with an Ez because of how good he is in the 2v1. But I guess they want a little bit more defensive power considering they're going up against a Kalista Alistar. It's also really good follow-up on things like the Sejuani engage, but you can see that SK have actually got a very solid team fight comp. I think they've got really good scaling with the Vladimir and the Ezreal, and they've also got a pretty solid mid-game spike too, so I think they're kind of playing towards their strengths, so we've seen a lot from them. Whereas Origen are just going very much towards trying to win lane. They've got a lot of strong side lanes. They have decent scaling with the Yasuo and with the Kayn as well, but I do think they're a little reliant on getting ahead during the laning phase, given that they have picked the cannon towards the top side of the map, and they also have picked the Kalista and the Alistar as well.
Actually, really interested to see this Yasuo pick as well. It seems like a much more aggressive draft coming out from Origen. Want to do more in the lanes. Kold needs to be ganking, needs to be getting into skirmishes to get towards that evolution, towards the Rust.
I mean, I'll be honest though, Medic, like, this draft from Origen, the win condition doesn't seem abundantly clear to me because it feels like they've got a mix of everything in here.
Okay.
They've got strong bot side of the map. They have like good scaling with the Yasuo. Like they have decent team fighting, but you kind of want to have the Yasuo playing off on a side lane a little bit more. Like, I guess the argument could be made that they want to just try and force fights in the mid game. Their AoE is pretty effective with Kalista Cannon, with the Alistar acting as their front line, and if you have all the disruption from a Kayn, it can be pretty effective. But I also think that they're kind of relying on the fact that the Kayn can free farm. Yasuo, in theory, they clearly believe is a good matchup into the Aatrox, and they're happy to pick it. And so that they're hoping that they can just get that free scaling and get to a point where they can have through atoms and out damage. So I'm interested to see how this Origen composition works. It's definitely quite unique, not what I would expect. But the SK comp seems very more classic. It's very straightforward, team fight, good scaling, have a solid mid game, have a good late game, and again, our eyes will be falling onto Selfmade to see how much of an impact he can have in terms of the early laning phase.
Will he gank top? And then afterwards, will he gank bot? Those are the important questions when you watch Selfmade, because that's exactly what he does. Every single game, without fail, pretty much. We're going to jump onto the summons.
Let's track their junglers.
Yeah.
Medic. Let's see what they're up to.
Let's look at them.
Selfmade.
At the moment, Selfmade, he's in the mid lane.
Right.
He's on the new
okay,
skin.
we're a little early. He is running the new skin, yes. But it's a little early.
Look at that porky boy. Like one person in the crowd just giggled at that.
It's not my favorite Sejuani skin, though.
No?
I like the, I think it's Battlecast.
Is it Battlecast Sejuani
The
skin?
one where she rides a bear.
Oh, that's like the northern tundra one.
Yeah.
Mithy getting the cowbell in. Do you want to sing along? He's giving you a beat, Vedia.
No, well, the cast hasn't gone goofy enough for that just yet.
Yeah. Okay, so junglers, where are they going to go? Selfmade does always go top.
Yes,
That's always his first gank.
You'd expect him to start bot side.
That's exactly what he's doing.
Well,
Kold is starting top side.
Careful, he's grouping up with Dreams and Crownshot. They may be looking for a delayed invade here, but it actually looks like Kold. Where is he, Path? He's putting a ward in the river, and it looks like he's going to do Solar Raptors into red. So he's going to do a more conventional jungle start with the Kayn because of how strong he is. And SK, they're going to go
away
in
the
for
blue.
an invade.
This is a really nice invade. Obviously, Braum Sejuani's a powerful level 1 as well.
So what SK are actually doing here is they're splitting the map. This is something that XL did back in week 1. And the reason why you do this is because it allows your jungler to play towards one side of the map, whereas the other jungler is forced on the other side of the map. So Origen should have full information, given the fact that Crownshot and Dreams have just walked through the river, that Selfmade just stole his blue. This means that Kold will go from his top side red into the enemy top side blue, and while this will force Werlyb to play defensively, it means that Patrik and Mithy don't have jungle support. So we'll see what they try and do with this. You can typically, Patrik and Mithy will try to play more on the defensive side. They have to respect the fact that there is a jungler towards the bottom half of the map, but they're trying to rush that level 2 and mitigate the risk of a gank, because if Patrik and Mithy are already at that level 2 state, then it obviously becomes a lot harder to gank them.
It definitely does. Now, I do want to actually look at Kold quite a lot in this early game, because up until now, what we've seen from Kold is not aggressive jungler. He doesn't force skirmishes, he doesn't tend to force fights that much. He actually has very low jungle proximity with his team as well, doesn't spend that much time near his laners, and you can't really do that much on a Kayn, because you need to be picking up those soul shards. You need to be getting towards that transformation. So I wonder if we're going to see Kold be just a little bit more proactive in this game than we usually see from him.
I mean, so typically on Kayn, no, is the answer, because you just want to farm. This is actually really interesting from Selfmade. He's actually going to go back towards his blue, and he's going to try and contest this. He does have the smite available.
Selfmade has the burst. Kold jumps in, smite comes out from Selfmade, he secures it, and now Kold just going to keep trading onto Selfmade as much as possible. The stun comes out, Kold now has to run.
It's because of the cannon was on his way down, so Selfmade couldn't stick in that fight. Even though he actually had the damage to trade, he didn't want to risk it. So this is really an interesting, I'll come back to your core point in a second, but I just want to break down why this happened. So you'll notice that just below the mid lane, there's this one ward at the entrance to the red buff on SK. And then also in the tri-brush, there's another red ward coming out from OG as well that the Braum has just cleared out. So Origen had full information of where Selfmade was throughout the entirety of the early levels. This meant that Selfmade couldn't really control the bot side and threaten a gank, because Origen knew exactly what he was up to and where he was trying to play. So rather than just stick to his bot side, he said, well, you know what? I'm going to go check if my blue buff has been done. So he then makes his way back up, and it's just an efficient use of his time, where he ends up getting all 3 buffs, and now he has a level advantage over Kold.
And he even has the extra Razorbeaks, the extra Scuttle Crabs, the extra Krug, sorry, and the extra Gromp. You know, Kold's jungle is pretty much cleared out. His Razorbeaks have just respawned, but didn't really have anything he could do for probably about 30 seconds.
And this really sucks for a Kayn as well, because he's actually quite mana dependent in the early levels. He spams that Q, it costs quite a lot, which means that it then gets much harder to be impactful in the early game. And the thing about Kayn is his base stats are very weak, and so he's not really a high impact ganking jungler in the early game. Ideally, you want to be invading in the enemy jungle, stealing away some of those camps, maybe getting a couple trades in with the enemy jungler, and then using your mobility to stay safe. But so far, Selfmade has had the better of him, and I like what Selfmade has done.
Alphari seems to have the better of Werlyb in the top lane for the moment, about 19 CS up or so. Has that Kleptomancy again on the cannon, so he'll be pocketing bank, as you say in the UK, about 700. Wow. Almost about to say 7,000, 700 gold ahead.
That's very significant this early on into the game. The reason why this happens is because Vladimir, his wave clear is very weak in the early game, and the only time he can really change is when you can see that empowered Q is up and available, whereas Alphari can just keep hitting you, keep hitting you, keep hitting you, and force you out of lane. Now this matchup does get better as the lane progresses, but in the early stages, it's extremely rough, and Alphari is leveraging that as much as possible.
The good thing for Werlyb is he can go towards something like the Spirit Visage to mitigate some of that, gets extra healing, gets some magic resist, gets the cooldown reduction as well on the Vladimir, which is so vital. As soon as you can start out-sustaining the consistent poke that Alphari will put down, that's when the lane really goes in your favor. Now, Selfmade with a level advantage, hasn't ganked top yet. We are 5.5 minutes into the game, so would have expected it by now, but instead waiting to get towards that level 6. Kold secures his own Gromp, and the junglers meet once again, but not too much is happening. Teleport used by Crownshot to get back into the lane. He has the Sheen first, not completed the tier on that Ezreal yet.
So remember that, gank in mid.
Nukeduck puts down the wind wall, pulled back by the chains though, Selfmade looking for the chase. Nukeduck will just chuck out that Steel Tempest Tornado.
So remember, if you're playing Kalista, your goal is to win the 2 versus 2, right? Now, he is behind in farm. He's also behind in gold. Now, I will give them that around level 6, maybe that kill threat will increase. I haven't seen Kalista in a long time. She's had a lot of changes since we've last seen her in competitive play, so I'm not going to pretend that I am a well-versed expert on Kalista, but what I do know is that typically, if you pick her, it's to win the lane and then to transition into a strong mid-game. And you already talked about her base stats were buffed. That should make her even stronger in the early game, but so far, SK have been playing very defensive. They've been farming from a safe distance, and they're actually ahead in terms of farming. Because of the Kleptomancy, Crownshot's even further ahead in terms of gold.
I think the difficulty as well is, like, how do you actually play aggressively in this lane, right? Yeah. If you jump on the Braum, he puts up the Unbreakable. You don't really get that much damage down, even though you get some Ren stacks in the end. If you jump on the Ezreal, he jumps away. So you can't really get that chase off. I agree with you. Level 6 is probably where we'll see Patrik and Mithy try to be a little bit more aggressive, but they do need to do something. Here we go on the Ezreal. He still has the E to get away. Mithy's going to take some damage in response. Dreams puts up the wall, and it ends up being a relatively even trade.
Yeah, relatively even. Dreams can just jump back to safety, but we need to see more of this from the OG bot lane. You know, we had question marks in the draft about whether or not what the goal of this duo was. They picked it pretty early. You know, it was in the first rotation. And they need to make it work. But on the bright side for them, they do still have Alphari dominating the top side of the map. Definitely a much better laning phase compared to what we've seen from him over the last 2 weeks. And he's really putting the pressure onto Werlyb. Not only is he getting a lot of Kleptomancy stacks, but he's already taken down a turret's plate as well. So he's farming up very nicely.
He's on his way to a second. As you can see, almost 8,000 gold, lead about 900 or so in that top lane. Now that we've started to see, you know, the level 6s come out on these junglers as well, I expect maybe a gank or two to occur. Selfmade with the Glacial Prison has shown us how effective he can be on this Sejuani. You just have to remember back to the Fnatic game on day 1, the first game of the LEC, to think about how much he can do on this champion. It's an interesting animation, that pig walking.
Why?
Because I'm not sure how pigs walk usually, but I expected more of like a side-to-side waddle than a straight line flubber. That's what I'm going to call it.
Wait, you call... Wait.
That's a flubber.
No, it's not.
That is
it's
that's
one foot in front of the other.
That's a flubber.
Oh, he's ganking top!
Oh, he's ganking top! Cleared out a water. You got me excited for a second.
Yeah, but I was going to say, this is the classic Selfmade. This is what we always see from him.
He didn't actually gank, he just
But, I mean, he came top.
Okay.
And, the laugh.
Ganked that minion. Oh, actually jumps onto my body as well, Lightning Rush. Okay. That's down. You've still got Glacial Prison. You can flash Glacial Prison.
I thought he would Glacial Prison that, but he's not going to.
No.
All right, fair enough.
They don't know where Kold is, so maybe just respecting the fact that if Alphari is going to Lightning Rush straight in our face, would he do that without his jungler being nearby?
Maybe. Oh, but he's still hanging around. He is committed to, I will get my top laner a kill early.
Just try and mitigate some of the bleeding up towards the top side. Here we go. Glacial Prison connects with the stun. Locks Alphari down. The Hemoplague is popped. And that is Burst Blood. And once again, Selfmade goes top and gets a kill. Kold flashes in. Looking for Werlyb. No flash on the Vladimir. Unboard Trespass is enough to get the kill. And Kold can continue to trade. Stunned up as Selfmade has the flash. Will be able to get away. Instead, trading in. He jumps in. Oh, the red buff! He ganked top. He got 2. And SK come out on top.
Selfmade, the MVP of SK, plays that beautifully. He lands another fantastic ultimate onto Alphari. He then gets a 1v1 kill against Kold. And we do have a brief pause. It has come out from the OG side. We will get more information to you once we have it. But, in the meantime, I hope we get a replay of this SK play towards the top side of the map, because Selfmade, you know, we joke about it. We say every single game, Selfmade comes top. he tries to gank for Werlyb. Now, usually it's a little earlier in the game, but he still came this time around. Now, gank for Vladimir is great. You know, you want to try and put that cannon behind. You want to try and make the laning phase a little bit easier for the Vladimir. But the fact that he just committed, he had the vision up towards the top side of the map. He had everything in his control. And then he's like, all right, this guy laughed at us. We will not tolerate that. We will secure this dive.
Well, let's have another look at it, because it is an Alienware big play. How powerful Selfmade is when he gets one of his signature picks. We're going to have a look at that Sejuani gank towards the top lane. I was told.
Are we, Medic?
I don't know. I hear voices in my ear, and I'm not sure. Sometimes they're producers.
Can't always trust the voices.
Could just be me talking to myself. There we are. Let's have a look.
Okay, so here we are. So he's sitting on the control ward. Alphari did just use the E. He cannot see Selfmade right now until it's too late. And then Selfmade lands a clutch ultimate. Werlyb can easily dive. Now the problem for Werlyb here is his W is still on cooldown. So he doesn't have that available to him. That means that Kold can drop the full combo, get the execute, and the mistake that Kold made was trying to 1v1 a Sejuani. And in the early game, Selfmade has a surprising amount of damage with the red buff and the E as well.
Even hides the Q animation within the flash there. Yeah. That was pretty...
And
yeah, he held the wave afterwards.
He held the wave, so that's actually pushing towards his top laner too. Selfmade, man, this guy, this rookie joining the league. He made a fantastic performance in week 1. He's continued to be the staple of this team moving into week 3, and you'll be happy to hear, audience, that the pause has been lifted.
Yes, it has. There were reports from Mithy that he was experiencing some lag. We are now back into the game, so I'm sure that has been rectified and sorted. And speaking of Mithy, that bot lane has hit that level 6. We wonder if they're going to make something proactive happen down towards there. They're about 8 or 9 CS down to a Kleptomancy Ezreal, who's now got the tier stacking up, building towards that Man and Moon. Looks like Blade of the Ruined King is going to be the first completed item on Patrik as well.
But you've always got to look at the gold in this capacity, and even though the bot lane looks relatively even, you can actually see that there's a 200 gold advantage towards the Ezreal. That means he has the Sheen, the pickaxe, and the tier all completed, and that's like the best case scenario for the Ezreal. Remember, he's going to keep scaling with these AP builds that we're seeing now more and more on the Ezreal. His late game damage is way stronger than it used to be.
Oh, when you say AP build, you mean tier into Muramana, into Iceborne Gauntlet or Trinity Force, into the Seraphs.
Yeah, and even from Attila, we saw sometimes coming out the Sorcerer's Boots. In the late game, I think he was even building things like a Gunblade as well. So like, there's just a lot of AP intertwined in a lot of aspects. And
it's kind of a hybrid build.
Yeah, some of the variations you also see is, you will sometimes see the, what do you call it? The Iceborne Gauntlet. So there's like a lot of variations in Ezreal builds, but the one most common to me is Blade of the Ruined King. You also see the
Manamune,
Iceborne, and the Archangels.
And then the Archangels, yes. Depends what you want to do. Kold's come up towards the top side here. I think he was spotted on a ward as he came across. Trying to sneak around, but there's a pink ward in that bush. Here we go, looking for the fight. Onto Werlyb. Has got the Sanguine Pool, goes down. Hema Plague only hits onto Alphari. There's the Onboard Trespass as well, but the health regeneration on Werlyb's quite a lot. They do a good job of tower diving. Kold is not healthy enough to survive, though, and Werlyb gets a 1-for-1.
Really unfortunate that Werlyb was only able to land his ultimate onto Alphari there. If he'd gone the onto Kold, he would have had a bigger heal that might have given him enough survivability, and then the duo of Origen wouldn't have actually been able to set up that dive. So small misplay there from Werlyb, but still ends up trading 1-for-1. And it will allow SK to get themselves a Drake, but again, more gold goes into the pocket of Alphari. He'll take himself another turret plate and go back to base.
I think as well, Kold's shown his intention for this game. It's gank top often, and try and get Alphari ahead by doing things like this. He was spotted on a ward twice before he got there.
So again, so you can just see the ultimate just misses Kold, and you can see how much of a healing Werlyb actually gets from both his Q and the ultimate. And if he'd just gotten that extra bit of HP, it might have been enough, but unfortunately it wasn't. Still, 1-for-1. Overall, great trade for Werlyb. And again, I'm a little concerned for Origen, just because playing towards the top side, I don't think they need to. Alphari's already doing very well. He's winning this 1v1. He's building up a big gold lead. And right now, the gold advantage that OG is sitting on comes from the top lane. That's about a 1,000 gold advantage that Alphari has in his back pocket. So trying to snowball that, I don't think is as valuable as actually trying to get your Kalista and Alistar ahead.
I mean, that makes sense to me, especially since we talked about it in Pick and Ban. We want to see them win the lane. We want to see them win top lane and bot lane. And at the moment, they're only winning top lane. They need to do something down towards the bottom lane, you feel. Maybe there's something about the Kalista that we have not anticipated, that we don't know, that Origen have planned for, but...
So that's why I'm kind of reserving my judgment.
We're slightly reticent about saying this is entirely wrong from Origen. I think our concern is...
I'm skeptical.
We have seen Origen play this style before, not make big leads off lanes they should have made big leads, and then lose because they just die too much and lose team fights later on in the game.
It's true.
So that is the concern if you're an Origen fan right now. And SK have this team fighting composition. They have all of the strength they need to win team fights pretty well at that 2-3
I think we're going to see a team fight right now, man.
Yeah, Mithy not going to be pulled in by the Infernal Chains. Doesn't land the knockup. Then he goes in with the flash. Patrik coming in from the side as well. Lands straight onto the Callisto. Once again, Selfmade finds its mark. That prison is a homing beacon for the backline, and 3 members of Origen fall in a heartbeat.
Selfmade is just insane. This man has like homing ultimate on Sejuani. By far one of the best, if not the best Sejuani player we have here in Europe. This guy just
I think we need to name it something, because it's like the slide and glide, right? Like he slides in, he chucks it in like round the corner. He almost bends the bullet of the Glacial Prisoner every single time.
What about the Glacial Maid, or I don't know? We got to get his name has got to be in there. Okay. Consistently he lands them, but Selfmade is a difficult name to use.
It's really tough. And the last time we named something after an EU player, they took it out of the game.
Wait, what was that?
The Tom Kench save. You can no longer save someone.
That's true. That's very, very true.
It's a shame.
All right, so
we'll let him think of the name at some point.
Yeah. But think of it at home, guys, because people online are very creative when it comes to
That's true. That's true.
So maybe the fans at home can come up with something, but definitely, again, the point is to reinforce how good Selfmade is at Sejuani, right? And we talked about at the beginning of the game, which is that when stuff happens for SK, it happens off the back of him. And this all starts because they're invading on the red buff. They have push on the top, which means that Werlyb can get hit first. And while Ezreal isn't there, they still feel confident because it's actually a 4v3 before Yasuo can get involved. And because of Selfmade landing that ulti onto Patrik and him not being able to do any damage in the fight, he couldn't even use any of his summoner spells. It means that SK immediately convert it into a big numbers game and they win the fight. So now they're 6-3 in kills. That's a pretty hefty gold lead they've got.
Yeah, 15 minutes in, well, it's about 400 at the moment, Verius.
But remember that it's Alphari who has the gold lead, and if you remember that, if you kind of look at the deficits everywhere else, mid has an advantage now for Pirean, bot lane has a big advantage for Crownshot, and the jungle as well advantage for Selfmade. So even though the gold looks close, SK actually have bigger advantages elsewhere on the board.
15 minutes in, here's the transformation, and unsurprisingly it's Rust. We are playing competitive play. Don't usually see the Shadow Assassin.
As Daniel Dracos likes to say, this is when he becomes a champion. He now has way more crowd control, he's a lot more relevant in the game, he's very impactful, and I definitely think that he is he's much more of a nuisance, especially once he completes that Black Cleaver because of all the extra sustain that he gets from his build.
Dracos, of course, our resident Kane main amongst the EU Shoutcaster team. Rifthold used mid, and this should be a pretty easy take for SK. They'll open up the first turret of the game. There it goes. 2,000 gold lead now for them. They have accelerated off that team fight win. They can continue to push, but really, Origen haven't responded to this at all. They're going to get another charge out of it. Alphari decides to stay up top, doesn't have the teleport, so he can't join the fight. Selfmade is going to dive underneath the tower. Hits Kold and Mithy as well, but already that tower's very low. Here is a lot of damage coming out from Nukeduck, though. The last man, not enough to knock down one. The World Ender keeps alive Pirean for the moment. Nukeduck on that backline takes out one, but he's going to get stunned up. He's down. Tower falls as well. Selfmade dodges away to the side, but Patrik is here. Finally joins the fight. That's one for him. Maybe this is the fight that gets Patrik back in the game. Gets Pirean. That's two. Looking for the triple. The channel comes out. Patrik's so low. Crownshot's there as well. It's a triple. And Patrik gets away. Great fight for Origen. They find SK out of position.
SK dive underneath the tower, and Origen are finally able to punish. It ends up being a 1-for-3 in favor of OG, and Patrik secures all the kills. The Callista is now much better set up for success. And SK, they just get a little too overzealous.
Patrik's like, okay, I'll come in. Maybe Callista not the best in lane anymore. Maybe Callista couldn't get that level 6 that we wanted, but if you're going to feed me 3 kills underneath the tower, I will take that gladly. Now, Infernal Drake on the cards for Origen with their first of the game, but look at how that gold's evened out, Verius. A second ago, a minute ago, I was saying 2,000 gold lead for SK. Now it's even out. And the big thing we have to look at is that AD carry position after this fight.
So the dive happens because they think they can just blow up Nukeduck, but Mithy and Kold are just right behind them. So now SK are a little divided in what they want to do. Werlyb isn't able to get any damage off because of how well Mithy zones him from the fight, and Kold just buys plenty of time because of what he's able to do on the Rust. So then Patrik joins the end of the fight when everyone is super low health on the side of SK, and he can just clean up. Patient play from the side of Mithy means that he saves the ultimate till the very end. You think Crownshot can maybe clean things up, but he doesn't want to overcommit. And remember that Alphari wasn't even in this fight. He didn't have the teleport. he couldn't really join, so he secures a top lane tower. SK get a tier 2 in the mid lane, and again the game still stays relatively even. So now we look at Patrik. We look at him to be the big carry in this mid game state. He's even picked himself up a QSS.
Yeah, that's interesting though, because it does delay his damage. You look at the Ezreal, he's got Mana Mune stacking up towards that Mure Mana and the Iceborne Gauntlet. It's a 2-item Ezreal. Patrik's sitting at 1 items. And, I mean, Kold's not even got his Black Cleaver yet. You only have 1 item complete on Alphari. You just need a little bit more if you're Origen at the moment. You're a little bit too far behind to really take any full-on skirmish. And a team fight is probably going to be devastating for you.
SK, this is where SK thrive though, when they have the lead, when they are in control of the map. That's when we see them look their strongest, look the most comfortable and confident. And that's where they rely on the synergy that they have with the 3 of the 5 former Mad Lions players. And
yeah.
They look very good right now, as you mentioned. 2 items being completed across the board. Vladimir has finished the Spellbinder and the Proto Belt. He's doing a good job of trying to keep up with Alphari, who still sits with a gold lead, but definitely smaller than what it was before. Only about 600 now, and Nukeduck still scaling up. You got to remember that the Yasuo is still very strong in the late game, and something that we never really talked about this game is the synergy between. Ooh, never mind, don't have time. Fight the bot lane.
Synergy between Alphari and Kold. Hemo playing onto Alphari. There's a lot of damage coming out from Werlyb. The Sanguine Pool will heal him up in just a second, but Alphari flashes away, and now Werlyb shouldn't be long for the Summoner's Rift. Knocked up by Ras and taken out by Alphari.
Yeah, a little overextended there from Werlyb. He didn't have any vision in the bot side of the jungle. He didn't have his jungler to help defend him, so he ends up getting killed, but he did force the flash out from Alphari, and you can see that this Vladimir is getting to a point where he can pretty much handle the Kennen now, and if Kennen doesn't get that assistance, then he starts to lose out on those 1v1s.
Do like the itemization from Alphari to try and deal with it a little bit though. Gone for that Morellonomicon, gets you the Grievous Wounds, which stops Vladimir from getting as much healing, perhaps, as he usually would. It's not too uncommon, but always good to see people itemizing situationally.
So, yeah, Werlyb thinks he can go for this trade because he dodges out some of the damage from Alphari. Kold does miss the W, which means that if it had landed, he might have actually just gotten the kill onto Werlyb, which ends up forcing the flash out from Kold. So, bit of a mechanical misplay there from Kold, but at the end, they have enough damage to secure the kill, and they find it onto Werlyb. So,
if you want League in speedy mode, that's what it looks like for a second. I thought we were watching Earth, but we're not. We are watching normal League of Legends, although more action-packed a game than we usually see from Origen. Usually by this point they've died about 5 times, they've got 1 kill. Here they have 8 and only died 7 times, which is a big improvement for them, and now that you have the Infinity Edge on Nukeduck, I expect to see him going to a side lane, trying to apply some pressure on other portions of the map.
Yeah, ooh, he's actually gone for the Infinity Edge second. Normally we see it as a 3rd item.
Yeah.
Something like the Sterax or maybe a Magic Resist item will come in second.
I guess if he's not playing into Werlyb, doesn't really need the Magic Resist. I could see the Sterax still working out well though. A little bit more tanky if you get caught up.
It's fine. Like, I don't think there's anything innately wrong with going for the Infinity Edge second. We'll see what he goes for 3rd, whether he just kind of stacks up on the damage, or if he will go for something like the Sterax for a little bit more survivability. Then you can always kind of rely on Nukeduck to be pretty consistent when he's playing these carry style champions. But something we didn't mention that I wanted to mention, but we might again not have time for, as Nukeduck gets out
and Sterax probably would have helped him, but not for long in that fight. Let's go get the kill, and Pirean is the one to secure it.
Just want to say, I don't think Selfmade has missed an ultimate this game.
No, he's a god. Like, it's miraculous how he hits them.
It's very, very impressive.
We do need a name for it, though.
Yeah, someone will come up with a name, because we're clearly not creative enough. Dragon will be spawning in about 30 seconds. SK going to get some vision on it. Have their eyes actually set on this bot tier 1. If they can take that one down, definitely a lot more gold in their back pockets. And they're maintaining pressure onto Origen. This is one of the issues that I had with Origen yesterday. They were very afraid to press the go button. I felt like that their composition works really well around Baron, and when they could group up and force vitality in these 5v5s, then they could find some success, but they were often afraid to actually pull the trigger. And you can very clearly see that Selfmade is not afraid to press R. He will fight you whenever he sees an opportunity.
Selfmade slide.
The Selfmade slide. Yeah. That's not bad.
It's okay. I think we'll do okay. We'll use that for now.
Yeah.
But yeah, one thing as well, the Rift out being taken this early by SK and pushed it up the mid lane has opened up a lot of the map for them, and now Origen are trying to fight them around this Infernal Dragon. Infernal Chains will pull back Mithy, pops the ultimate, teleport is actually used against the fight. There's Mithy. Alphari pops the slicing maelstrom in the pit, but they do get the Infernal. Now, Patrik's pulled them back. The Hemo Plague's landed on him and Nukeduck as SK now advanced through the river. Patrik's still running away, doesn't have that much health. Mithy sacrificed. Kold, Alphari, and Nukeduck need to go away. Selfmade misses one. The Selfmade glides past Kold, but Kold does land.
SK's continuing the chase,
continuing the push. Tornado comes out. Not sure SK can go any further.
So OG walk away with an Infernal Drake and a loss of a single team member. It did cost Patrik all of his summoner spells, which means that he won't have that same survivability the next time Werlyb dives onto the backline like he did in this fight. But keep your eyes on the setup, right? Because Patrik doesn't actually come in from behind with his team, and he actually takes a bit of chunk damage from Crownshot right at the beginning of the fight, so he can't really get involved. Alphari then tries to dive onto the backline, both immediately dash out. Now, the bright side is it does secure the Drake, but then Patrik is left by himself, allowing Werlyb to just dive on top of him. Great win wall from Nukeduck to just buy some time to actually mitigate a lot of the damage that was coming out from SK, which means that the rest of the team can escape, but unfortunately not quite so lucky for Mithy, who ends up dropping off the back of the 5 SK members, who are now setting up around the Baron pit.
I'm wondering if Patrick's going towards a Ginsu's Rage Blade here. He has a recurve bow and has the pickaxe, which is quite possible.
I think it works, because once you hit the max stacks, you can then double apply the Ren stacks, right? So
right, he just built it. So I think we can both agree that he is definitely going towards Rage Blade. That is his second complete item. Didn't really have much of an impact in the last fight, but perhaps the next one will be his reckoning. SK setting up around the Baron here, have a little teeny tiny bit of deep vision around the red buff, but is it enough? Kold steps forward. 3 players of SK here. Reaping Slash, not going to do too much.
So very quickly, the synergy that I didn't get to talk about earlier that I want to talk about.
Tell me about it, Venice.
Is the
because every time you start something like this, they fight. So keep talking. They're going to fight in a second. They're going to fight.
The Rast knock-up with the Yasuo ulti synergize very well. It's really easy to actually then get the Yasuo ult onto targets that you want, right? Because the cooldown is also very low.
Fate's Call also works with it.
Yeah, so a lot of setup.
And here's the fight. You talked about something. The fight starts. Pirean pops the world ender. Goes into that resurrection. Fate's Call pulls him back. Nukeduck not close enough. Another miss on the Glacial Prison. They catch out Crownshot. He's going to flash and jump away. Selfmade zoning out Nukeduck towards the top side of this. Uncle Trespass on Crownshot. That's one down. Origen find a good fight in their own jungle. Now they're going to turn towards the Baron, but can SK fight around it? Will Origen just start it up straight away? They do have the Callista. Still does do bonus damage towards those epic monsters.
Massive misplay there for the side of SK, trying to invade into OG's jungle.
Werlyb just went golden.
That's another big misplay.
Huge.
SK making all these mistakes. Look at Mithy on the
flank.
flank.
He's got flash out. The Mithy here with the flank. Slicing Maelstrom comes out. They catch out Dreams. Dreams jumps away. Pulls a great Glacial Fissure overboard. The Hemo play comes out as well. Worm's got to the backline. Nukeduck's low. Last breath. Enough. He's still alive. The Hemo play didn't do enough work, but that's Nukeduck down. And now Pirean having to run away from Patrik. Origen do not pull the trigger on the Baron on the way back.
But they do find a number of kills, unfortunately, because the amount of damage that Werlyb did to the entire team of Origen, they could not go back for the main objective. And this is the big misplay here. Pirean just walking into the enemy jungle, who, when he doesn't have proper support, his waves aren't set up, he doesn't have a good setup for the rest of his team to really follow, and then Crownshot here by himself. The knockup comes through the ultimate, Mithy immediately punishes him, he loses his flash, he doesn't have heal, and it just means that OG can get a very easy collapse. So big misplay there. Then the Werlyb Zhonya's gets used, and imagine if he had that earlier on, or later on in this fight, when Alphari then goes in for the engage. They shut down Dreams, who gets a good ulti here, and then followed up by this 4-man ulti. If he'd had this on his to buy a little bit more time, maybe SK could have done something with it, but they only end up getting 1 kill in exchange for 3. But at the very least, SK don't lose the Baron.
They do not. 26 minutes in. 300 gold, the difference between these two teams. Basically nothing. You're looking at the key carries, Patrik, Nukeduck having a good game, Alphari as well, stepping up after we said he'd looked a little bit weak so far in the LEC. Pirean really standing out on the side of SK, 4-1-3 on that Aatrox. But now your eyes turn towards Crownshot, who has gone towards that Hextech Gunblade, going for the more burst-heavy AP. Kold going in, Blades reach, lands onto 2. Not going to get too much more out of it.
Vladimir has no teleport right now, and he's sitting in the bot lane. He has been able to push up the bot side of the map, but Nukeduck is doing the same on the top side. So while Pirean catches that, OG have the opportunity to just hold this mid side. Now, this is a big opportunity for SK, because remember, they have the pushing wave bot, and this is something Origen often do. They'll sacrifice that side farm, which means that Alphari will continue to lose XP at the cost of staying grouped up with the rest of his team.
That's a big issue, though, because you do start to just fall behind in levels. If we see Werlyb hit 16 before Alphari, that's a massive team fight changing ultimate. Mithy popped the Hex Slash. Oh, great wing wall on Selfmade. That's really one ultimate down. SK have all the vision around this, so Mithy goes in. There's a slicing Maelstrom as well. Alphari's jumped to the back line already. Crownshot's dead. Dreams is not soon to follow. Werlyb chased off by Kold. Really good stuff there from Origen. Made a decisive call. He got the 2 kills they wanted.
Yeah, big fight from the side of Origen. The flash ultimate from Alphari onto a summonless Crownshot means that the Ezreal died almost instantly. Selfmade is still alive. Pirean needs to be careful here.
He's popped the world ender. He just wants to get some damage. And oh, whoa! He gets a lot of damage down onto Patrik. Gonna go into the resurrection. Selfmade here. Werlyb as well, trying to get in, but the wind wall will block him off the moment. Pirean jumps across the wall, and the second. Alphari there with the chase though, and Pirean is down. And now you have to feel Origen call for the Baron. You have to do it now.
Yeah, that was a misplay there from Pirean. He shouldn't have tried to go for that. There was no ulti on Selfmade or Werlyb. They were never going to win that 3v5. He gives away his life, but Selfmade does still have the flash. He has the smite. Can he get the steal away from Origen?
Do still have the rend from Kalista for the steal here. Crownshot coming in as well. Selfmade there. Mithy doing that frontline block. Crownshot coming in, Werlyb there as well. Nukeduck very low. Selfmade caught up by Mithy on the backline. Baron down to 1,000. Selfmade flashes in, but Kalista gets it. And that's already one down. Origen have lost a man. They've got 2 though, and this is just clean up crew for Patrik. That's 2 kills for him. There's the triple. Easy stuff for the Kalista.
And Origen finally cement a solid gold lead in this game. It's taken a few scrappy fights, but that's all they needed. Finding that pick onto Crownshot started this whole snowball in Origen's favor. They found one good fight around the Dragon, they converted it into another big fight around the Baron, and even though the Kalista damage to big monsters was nerfed, it's still significant enough to help secure the team the objective. Mithy zones Selfmade away. Werlyb doing what he can to get into the thick of things, but he just doesn't have the damage. Selfmade cannot secure the steal, and Crownshot gets knocked up by Kold with this very obnoxious Rast, who's just buying time for Patrik to clean up the backside of the fight.
Another triple kill for Patrik. He's 7-1-5. Runan's finished, has extra magic resist in his back pocket in the form of the Negatron cloak as well, and a 5,000 gold lead now extended for Origen. Want to see if they can close this one out. It is very rare that we have seen them in a gold lead at any point in the game. Never mind this late with a composition that seems to be working for.
Yes, it certainly has. Very, very mobile, a little unconventional, but it is certainly working out for the side of Origen. And I think the fact that Alphari's been able to get onto the backline, Patrik has remained unscathed, and also just Nukeduck's use of the wind wall has been fantastic in mitigating a lot of the engaged damage that SK tried to throw out.
Absolutely on point with it. Now we will see the 1-3-1 really start to come to effect from Origen. You put Kennen in the side lane, you put Yasuo in the side lane, no one can really deal with him. Yasuo at 3 items with a Frozen Mallet, Kennen at 3 items as well with the Banshees to keep him just that ever so slightly safer. And Pirean and Werlyb will try to match, but I do not think they will have the easiest of times doing so.
See, they're keeping pressure up. Right now, SK actually holding out in terms of wave clear. They still have this mid-tier 1 up and available. Just means more gold for Origen to take. Looking for a dive onto Crownshot and Dreams.
Just have to force them away. You can use the Hex Flash for that. Never have to go in. You decide at the last moment where you're going to go. It's not like you commit from the beginning.
I mean, to be fair, you got to acknowledge, right? You know, we talked a lot about how Kalista very much focused around the early to mid game, but with that Rage Blade and with the amount of attack speed she has, she can actually get those Ren stacks up very, very quickly. And onto a squishy target like you identified, there's a lot of squishy members onto SK. She can be pretty damn effective, especially when she has all this front line that she can play around. So it is working out for Origen. I was a little skeptical. Right now, it has been a very good pick for Patrik, 7-1-5 on the champion.
And we wondered if he'd have a game where he could really prove himself. Well, this was the pick that seems to have done it for him so far. Obviously, SK still have opportunities to get back into this game, looking at Selfmade predominantly to make a pick to land that Glacial Prison, but Origen doing it by the numbers now, just rotating around to the side lanes, getting the wave pushing in, and then maybe even looking for an inhibitor here. Mithy stepped a little bit too close to the tower as he channeled that Hex Flash and takes a chunk of HP.
Kold's gonna go catch the mid wave. He now has his GA. This is where level 16 Rast is really strong at this point in the game. You know, we talked about scaling aspects for Origen. The Yasuo and the Rast are the 2 champions that I really looked at, and now that they've hit those big item spikes, Patrik even at 4 items, a whole item ahead of Crownshot. Actually not going for the double tier build, which does surprise me because I feel like that's where you get a lot. Well, he hasn't completed it yet, but with the Lost Chapter, it looks like he's working towards it, but coming out very late into the game. And it means that Origen should have a lot more damage at this point in time.
Yeah. I do like the adaptation not to go for Blade of the Ruin King in this game, though. He doesn't really have too many tanks he needs to work through on the enemy.
Sure.
So don't really need that percentage HP damage that you get from the Blade. Instead, going Hex and Gunblade for a little bit more burst. And for a bit of escapability if you jump in, need that A little slow from the Gunblade. But the question is, can Origen close with a 7,000 gold lead? Because we've never seen them in this position. They have won one game, it was against Fnatic. SK have won 2. They won 1 against Fnatic and 1 against XL last week. But it's almost as if I don't want to hope in Origen. I know you had a speech last week about how Origen had let you down. We saw a quick shot at the start of Ready Check saying, you know, Deficio's let me down.
Well, I think many fans had high expectations of them, but I think they should be in a great position to be able to close out this game. They'll be waiting for the next Baron to spawn. As I said, I think that Crownshot's a way off completing that 4th item. And I think that Vladimir is the scariest factor on SK's team composition right now. If Crownshot can land some good poke, then maybe SK can set up for a nice fight, but I'm just very scared of this Nukeduck Kold duo of the Rost and the Yasuo. I think it's very, very difficult to deal with.
I can understand your fear. SK seems to understand it as well. They're backing off. They're letting Origen get a little bit more jungle pressure. Selfmade and Dreams were waiting in the bush for a moment, but the Sentinel will spot out Selfmade. Oh, dodges around it. Don't know he's there yet. 4 members of Origen now down towards the bottom side. Crownshot not here for SK. Selfmade trying to come in from the flank. Kold there in the wall. Shadow stepping his way. Gets the blades reach. Knock up onto Dreams. Crownshot get a little bit of damage off. Alphari actually maybe caught out a little bit here. Dodges away. Flashed away from the Glacial Prison. Don't think we count that one as a miss. That was a dodge.
Yeah, fair.
But Crownshot actually can just continue to chip away here. With the Iceborne Gauntlet, he does get those slows off. And SK relieve the pressure for now.
So they keep their bot and mid tower alive. The Baron has just spawned, and ultimates are all available for Origen except for the flash from Alphari, except for Selfmade, which means that primary engage tool from SK is gone. So this might give Origen the window to just force this Baron, because they know that SK are not going to find an easy fight.
What have you got? You've got Flash Hemoplate. You've got World Ender still available on Pirean. You've got the Glacial Fish. You've got Kold stealing away a blue buff.
Level 17 now on the Ross, definitely scary.
Joint highest level in the game. Oh no wait, Alphari and Nukeduck are 18.
Yep.
No one on SK 18 yet. Still no 16 for Selfmade either, so it doesn't have the upgrade on that ultimate.
Now, the rest of Origen are actually going back to base. SK might not know this. Well, they obviously don't know this, because I thought they could have tried to rush down the Elder.
They know they're not at Baron. That's the important thing for them at the moment.
Yeah, I'm surprised Origen didn't actually clear that one out, given that they just had control over the river. Good damage coming out from Crownshot there. But yeah, with both Elder and Baron alive, this makes the decision-making process a little harder for both teams. Typically, you want the Baron because it's easier to siege with, whereas the Elder Dragon offers you a lot more teamfight value. Here we are. Ooh, Dreams gonna stumble into Kold.
Straight into Kold. TP comes in straight behind them as well. Looks like Origen just won the fight. Alphari there. Crownshot maybe a bit out of position already. We see Dreams go down, and the fight out on the top side is huge as well. Patrik just opening up onto Werlyb. Hemoplate comes out. There's the stopwatch as well. It's a double kill for Alphari. Crownshot's dead. Patrick's cleaning up on the other side as well. This is too easy for Origen. They take down everyone but Pirean, and they can turn their eyes straight towards the Baron.
Yeah, Origen just melt through SK here. I doubted the late game damage, but again, it was the cannon with the death cap completed. The fact that it split off into small skirmishes, you showcase the power of this Rost in the late game. And Origen, they don't even care about the Baron. They want to try and break into the base of SK. There are 3 members dead, 20-second plus death timers. Origen looking to get their second win of the split.
And might even just be able to close it out here. Inhibitor down. Have a lot of damage from the Yasuo, from the Callista, and from the cannon. Origen looking for that second win. Pirean trying to stop them in their tracks. Last breath comes out. Pirean's popped the World Ender. Continues to clear out that minion wave, which is important. Here's Dreams as well. Still 8 seconds before Crownshot comes up. Resurrection on Pirean, but already the second Nexus Tower, the target for Patrik. He will take down Dreams. The second Nexus Tower follows. And finally, Origen will get their second win in the LEC.
It was definitely a close game for a very long time. That linchpin moment was definitely when Crownshot got caught out in the enemy jungle. Him losing his summoner spells meant that Origen had a very easy target to dive onto in the following team fights. Alphari got onto him pretty consistently, and we saw some great win walls as well coming out from Nukeduck in the mid lane. I felt like that the individual members of Origen definitely played better today. Patrik's positioning in team fights was definitely improved upon. Perhaps outside of that single dragon fight where he couldn't really get involved much, I feel like he was very solid. And while I was skeptical of their draft, it was clearly something that they came in prepared with. They made it work for themselves, and they ended up picking themselves up a win.
Definitely did. I think you have to give credit to Alphari as well in the top lane. We talked at the start of the game about how he was struggling a little bit, how he hadn't been the Alphari we've seen of old. But this game, it's a favorable matchup. We have to say the cannon into Vladimir. He still did a pretty good job of shutting down the enemy top laner. Werlyb unable to have as much of an impact in those team fights, and SK never really able to get to the team fights that they wanted.
Yeah, for sure. Game was fun though. It was definitely fun. Back and forth. A lot of kills happened. Got to see a Kalista come out back into pro play. Also got to see a Kane, our first one of the LEC. So that was cool. But I also think like Selfmade, man, what a performance from him.
Yep. His early game is still impeccable.
Very, very good. Yep. And I think that he showcased that he's definitely one of the top junglers that we have here in Europe. Love his decision making. Think he's very smart. I think he always looks to punish where he can. I think he has a strange